Some 70% of Americans don't have a will, even though it could save consumers millions of dollars in court fees. My colleague Hazen has a will, and he explains why every family should have one. Hey, Harold.
Hey, good to see you,
catch
Valerie.
up with you.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, 70%
That's
of
right.
Americans.
And that's in spite of all the emphasis that we have done over the years on the importance of having a will, and it's been 70%, 70%, 70%. It's something that people just procrastinate about, and it's something they ought not do. I think I just mentioned to you about a friend of mine, a close friend of mine that recently passed away, and it was sudden. He didn't expect to pass away. I had talked to this individual about wills and estate planning. He knew what I was all about for years, and yet he died intestate, which means without a will or an estate plan, and now his family is going through a morass of administration and with the probate courts and financial implications. It's so important and good stewardship that we all have a will.
What is the #1 reason people don't have a will?
Well, I don't know exactly what the #1 reason is. They just put it off.
That's what it is, probably
it's just procrastination. It's sometimes people say, well, I don't. Some of the younger folks that I talk to, they say, well, I don't need a will because
I'm not going to die.
It's just
right?
Well, and it's just us, and we don't have very much, and so and it's in both our names. But what they don't realize is if they would both suddenly be taken out of the picture, and if they had small children, and they hadn't established in writing who the guardians were going to be for those children, some stranger, some judge in a probate court makes the decision on who is going to raise those children and be guardians of those children. And this has happened to a lot of famous people.
So, and speaking of famous people, we know that Prince, the pop celebrity Prince, died several months ago, and it's reported that he did not have a will.
That's right.
With $300 million of money and assets at stake. And now it's going to be decided in a probate court.
Yeah, and it'll be tied up for years, and there'll be contests against it probably, and much of that money will be just frittered away in administration costs and court costs and all the things that you can avoid when you take the simple step to get together and get your will and your estate plan in place. Okay,
so let's talk about that. What's the first step to doing so? I think some people think it's just so costly that's why they don't have a will. What do you say to that?
That is an excuse that I hear from people is that they know that if they go to a lawyer, they're going to have to spend hundreds of dollars to get a will done. But it's something that's well worth the investment. It's an investment in your legacy. It's an investment in your life, because when you have a well thought out will and estate plan that is current, and every state is different, so it has to be done in your state, and it has to be brought up to the state laws. And that's why I say it's not a do-it-yourself project, because who can keep up with all the state laws? Now, I know there's online places where you can go and get the forms done and get advice from attorneys and things. And if you have a simple will, that may or may not work. I always advise people to go to an attorney, and it's going to cost a few $100s probably, depending on how complicated your will is. But if you have like blended families, where you have children from 2 marriages that come together, that gets very complicated, and there are special ways that you handle that. If both die at the same time, or one of the children die, what happens to that? I mean, there's just some really complicated things that can happen to an estate, and that's why you need an attorney who's up to speed with the state laws and can help you accomplish what you want to do with your legacy. And the second thing is, Valerie, it's just plain good stewardship. You know, I talk about stewardship, and God gave us what we have. We've taken a lifetime to build it. This is what we own, our property, and we want to distribute it wisely, and we want to be efficient and effective with it. And that's just, God would expect that from us.
And also, you know, Harold, when I think about Christians who want to leave a legacy to the body of Christ,
that's right.
You know, sometimes your children may not be born again, and they may not see the urgency in supporting ministry.
That's right. When you've supported a ministry your whole life, and God's work your whole life through your church or through some other organizations, don't stop when you do your will. This is a time that you can leave a legacy that lasts into God's work. The values, the things that you believed in can continue to go on by leaving something in your will. You can leave a portion of your estate, you can leave a percentage of your estate, you can leave a percentage of the residue after everything else is distributed. There are multiple ways that you can do it, but I always encourage people to do that. I've written a book about it, and people can have my book by just calling us and contacting us, and I'll give them a free book that'll tell them how to do this.
Well, before I let you go, tell us about charitable gift annuities.
Charitable gift annuities, another wonderful investment, another wonderful way to preserve your capital as you go through your retirement years. It's a wonderful way that you get paid back and make a gift to charity at the same time. You can invest in God's work, and you can get an income for the rest of your life that's stable, doesn't change, always stays the same, and it's regular and guaranteed. I don't like to say guaranteed because nothing's guaranteed in life, but it's fixed, and that's pretty good.
But that's a living legacy. That's something you can do right now and get involved in, correct?
Very good, exactly. That's something that people can do right now, and if they call us, we'll take care of all the details for them. It's very easy to do.
Well, Harold, every time you show up, I learn something. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to know more about, getting a will and the living legacy charitable gift annuities, go to legacy.lesea.com. Coming up later, Brian Bush with the latest news from Israel. But up next, Pastor Mark Lance shares how we can all make wise choices in the conclusion of 4 Steps of Making Godly Decisions. We'll be right back.